Hi, welcome to the Rhythm Roast Cafe. I'm Tom Brennan, the host tonight. There's Nick, Danny D, and our guest is Johnny Moe, a rock and roll guitarist. He was in a band called BB Spin that was popular around Chicago a while ago, back in what is it, 70s, early 80s?
70s, 80s.
70s and
I
80s?
continued after that with a band called The Return.
The Return?
An evolving musicians came and went, and I just kept writing.
Yeah.
And then put some stuff out in the 90s.
That's cool.
You still writing?
Yeah, in fact, I'll have a new record out in a few months. It's waiting for it to the mix is done, it's gonna get mastered, and then we gotta do the legalities.
So outside of your own productions, are you writing songs for other bands?
No?
Or just writing your own stuff
Yeah.
for your own band?
Yeah.
There was a guy, there was a local band back in the day called Trillion.
No, I remember, I've seen their name.
I think it was a guy named Pat Leonard was the keyboardist. And he went on to write, like, if I understand it, he wrote a bunch of Madonna songs, but never,
Yeah.
she bought it from him, so he never got the title work on it, as we like to say in the law business. He never got the residuals on that, but he went out, I just heard he was writing like songs like crazy back in the 80s.
Yeah, and he went out backing up a lot of famous people.
Yeah.
He was an in-demand road kind of keyboard guy,
Studio session guy.
studio guy, yeah.
There was a bass player of his at one point, I think Ron Animan, something along those lines, had a great voice, and somebody told me that the last I saw him, he was pedaling a bike downtown delivering like packages and parcels and stuff.
There's no guarantees.
That's it, man. Hit or miss. Same band, two guys went different directions.
One problem with being a rock and roll band, and in my experience anyway, is that you're willing to pay for nothing because you're young and you're stupid and you think that if people just see you, they're gonna love you.
Yeah.
Right? So you're willing to play for peanuts.
Sometimes you pay to play.
Sometimes yeah.
Battle of the Bands at beginnings was everybody thought it was audition night, and
Yeah.
and Dino would say like, you guys got to pay me $25-50 for the light man and the electricity,
Wow.
and they would like, okay, sure, yeah, and they would like, who won? It was like nobody wins. It was like we were just looking to see who was
Who would pay
any
us?
good to bring back on a Tuesday night, or open up for some band on the weekend. That's all it was. It
You
was
never
audition
hear
night.
Battle of the Bands anymore.
No.
You
It was
know,
audition
it's
night.
Not happening.
You don't have bands in here. Pop music, there's no bands. You know, if you look at the top 40 or whatever,
It's like Mulholland Drive.
There's
Das
still
Lobanda.
a scene out there with live bands, but it's not as pervasive as it once was,
Yeah.
especially with the rise of dance clubs that, like La Mer, Neo, 950, where it wasn't disco, it was punk,
Yeah.
and reggae and everything else. You know what I mean?
Then the 21 drinking age was no help. I mean, there were so many
I think
Yeah,
clubs.
well, they
the
came-
21
they came
drinking
back.
age pretty much killed nightclubs in this area.
Well,
The
yeah,
beginnings
especially
just
after you
dried
had
up
that surge.
in
Because
a
when
year or
as soon as
two.
it went to 18, it was like,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It was 19 for beer and wine,
Yeah.
which was like ridiculous. But okay.
Yeah, it was.
It's still-
That's what keeps college towns alive.
yeah.
18-year-olds drinking. If you didn't have 18-year-olds drinking, college towns would be dusty. You know?
Oh, my one kid just turned 21 last week. I go, it's no fun anymore now. I
Yeah.
go, it's just, it's no fun. But are you still involved in the local club music scene at all? Do you
No.
engage in it? Do you go to it? Nothing, huh? Okay.
Because, during the 80s and 90s, while I'm writing and putting out records every couple of years, I'm working full time. And my job also sometimes took me out of town, out of country. But I was always writing. I picked up the guitar because I wanted to write. I didn't care about being a lead guy. Hendrix or when I'm a kid, you know what I mean? And Bill Haley, any of these guys. I wanted to write songs. I really wanted to play piano. But the free piano lessons at our grammar school, I find out after I stand in line, get up and the nun goes, "What are you doing here, John? Piano lessons for girls only." What? True story. I'm in there for like a half hour. And I'm like, no wonder these girls look at me like, what are you doing here? Hey,
What school was that? Where did you?
it was St. Rosalina, was a Catholic grammar school on 48th and Ashland. Because I was always drawn to music.
So you were down by the amphitheater area.
West of there,
Yeah.
back of the yards.
Yeah, back of the yards.
Outsider.
You bet you be. The Stockyards, literally, the southwest corner ended at the end of my block.
Yeah.
You'd go through the fence. It was at that time, in a lot of buildings was prairie, but there was abandoned opaque, and there was still cattle down by
Well,
the Stockard, hogs and sheep.
I was gonna say my dad had a restaurant on 35th and Racine,
Okay, yeah.
which and then every once in a while we'd go to he'd have to take a ride to go pick up meat, and I'd go with him, and I was young, and you know, you'd see the cows in the back, and then you'd go in and you'd see him hanging from a hook on a conveyor belt, going this way, and the guy would have the chainsaw, and he'd be splitting the gut, and they
Well,
would
there's
be. I mean, it was just.
There was
As a young kid, it was a wild scene for me.
a block away from my house on the corner of 46th, 7th and Laughlin, which is Thompson Farms. They used to make canned hams, and they kill pigs there.
Yeah.
And in the winter, when you'd walk by, you know, after day go out play, and they had a block glass window in the light, you could see and then you had to shoot with the waste coming through, and the smell, and with snow. It was pretty. You got used to it, but
Well, as long as you were west of it, because usually the westerly winds would blow the smell east.
oh man,
Well, my old man said,
Darling Company was east of us. They took all the waste
Darling?
and made chemical, and when that would blow west.
that was the worst place to go.
Smell.
Because the Boilermakers used to get working there, my trade, I was a Boilermaker. And you didn't want to take a job at Darling, you know, they said, hey, you want to go out on this job at Darling, you know, they're working 6 10, she'll make a lot of money. I said, no, I don't want to work there.
It was brutal. Now,
Just because
the
it
cow
smells so
smell.
bad.
came
Yeah, I know,
in.
and you're working on these tanks, so you're repairing these tanks, and these tanks are just encrusted with, you
Blood
know, and then you
guts
gotta
and
clean
shit.
them and put a acetylene torch on it, and what does that smell like? You know?
Yep.
So you were interested in how hard rock or heavy metal bands developed? Is
Well,
that
it's been on my mind, you know, history of heavy metal, hard rock, I think at one time they meant the same thing pretty much. And then
It was. It's funny to see Led Zeppelin referred to as metal. Black Sabbath was hard rock. There was hard rock, and then there was rock.
yeah.
Right. So like the boogie kind of blues stuff, that was rock, and then, of course then you had the progressive rock. But hard rock would have been Blue Cheer, was Led Zeppelin, was
Blue Oyster Cult?
Blue Oyster Cult. But
Deep
before
Purple,
that,
like you
Deep
said,
Purple.
Ozzy.
Yeah, but I mean, really early on, Hendrix was hard rock.
He was hard rock.
Cream
and
was
the,
hard
the
rock.
Kinks were hard rock. You really
Well,
got me?
Kinks were really
And
hard
all
rock.
day and
Yeah.
all the night. That was like early metal with that distorted guitar.
Right.
Yeah.
And then Satisfaction. That was the first song was Fuzz Tone, wasn't it?
Yeah, that I know of.
You mean with a pedal?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Satisfaction predate You Really Got Me?
Yeah, I don't know.
Because
They're right around the
that's
same
when,
time.
That's when
yeah.
Davies puts the hole in the speaker
Got
and
that
gets that
distortion.
sound.
Yeah. And then
And I don't know if there were any kind of distortion pedals that did it. The earliest one I remember, oh man, it was 66, 60. The Gibson Attack, you plugged it into your guitar, then you put the cord in,
Cord in.
and you had the thing distortion. It was like, it was good to about 3 after. I was like, oh. Because you had shitty amps, right?
Yeah.
Those silver tones, if you fart on them, they fall apart, you know, from Sears. You know?
Gibson used to make a portable they called it a portable beach amp. It was called a pig nose. Okay, it was a square box like this,
Yeah.
you know? And it had a loop in the back so you could hook it
Yeah,
onto your
you-
belt, right?
Yeah, I know people had those.
And it ran on 2 AA batteries.
I remember the one you had, yeah.
Right, and you'd go to the beach, you plug it in, and if you turn the volume up, it was fuzz tone. Like, you know, it was just.
You know, it was an early riff-based, you could say maybe beginning of hard rock is Louie Louie.
Well, you
With
know
that-
what?
that,
You can make
repetitive.
one can make an argument that not only hard rock, but punk. The roots lay in garage rock.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Really good. The first time when I was managing the record store, we were the first people in Chicago to have Anarchy in the UK. We got to co-op in New York. And I put it on, and we put it in the store. And I was standing up, I had a friend listening to it, and I thought, hey, this is like Garage Rock, except with better guitars, better amps, a better studio, better equipment, you know what I mean? But at its essence, it's still like, or a riff like Dirty Water, you know?
Yeah, Dirty Water, yeah.
You know?
And just playing it as loud and as dirty as you can.
And you could say, what's it, 96 Tears is punk. Come on, it's a you know how many punk bands like
96 Tears.
Talking from my behavioralist point of view, the people that would come to heavy metal and hard rock were a lot of professionals. I mean, one of the heaviest followers of heavy metal was Bob Buford, if you remember him.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I mean, here's a lawyer, he's an engineer, he's on every board you could think of in the civic boards in Chicago, and man, he's a whiz on the air guitar. You know, he just.
I told you, I've said this before, I have a very good friend of mine that's like a real prominent heart surgeon in the Midwest.
Mm-hmm.
And he was at every Dead show, but he was at every Thrasher show at the Gone. Primus,
Yeah, you'd be
Megadeth,
surprised.
and they used to play that during his surgeries. And I guess it just drive everybody crazy, but you know, he's there, he's doing open heart surgery, listening to Primus and
Well,
whatever.
you know, in my lifetime, I've done more than 5,000 shows, a lot of them at the Aragon. And I thought I'd seen every, especially metal or heavy rock band. Bob comes up with this album,
Bob
Buford.
Buford.
Okay, he was my roommate at the time. He comes up with this album, Britannia Waves the Rules by Budgie.
Oh yeah,
Budgie.
Budgie.
I never heard of this band. I never heard of this band.
Budgie,
You
man.
know?
I was listening to Budgie last night. Napoleon 1 and 2.
You guys gonna do guitar riffs all day?
It was just unbelievable, you know. I look at this and I'm thinking, in mental image is this Aryan kid with long blonde hair, you know, going like this, and then fist pumping, yeah. Never getting off his chair though, you know, the whole time.
But Budgie had the bluesy part.
Yeah.
They didn't get away like the Germanic heavy metal that just cut the blues right out of it and took this
Mechanical.
away and just
That's
went to
because
that.
you know why? I know you talk about those guys because a lot of those guys, like the guy from Focus and Nini and they were trained. Do you know what I mean? Some of them classically and went over to guitar. Whereas like in England with even if they had like Page coming up with trad, McCartney too, but when they heard, you know, Black American music, Chuck Berry and that stuff, it was boom.
Yeah.
You know, that's what they went for, you know, and try to be as authentic as possible. You think about it, you know, because sometimes when I'm in my basement working, I'll listen to like I like early Fleetwood Mac. I think Peter Green's the best of those English blues guitar players. He is with blues, and he's written a lot of great songs. But you listen to that, and then you listen to Americans, how they take it, come from the blues. And it's either they're like Paul Butterfield and that school of music, Amos Garrett, where they're pretty traditional. And then the guys who take it's kind of rocky, but it's not quite the same in a way with the English.
Well,
You know?
I
So you're
remember-
saying the English blues is different?
I mean, the
than
way they
American
took
blues?
American blues and transferred it, incorporated it into rock.
Okay.
You know what I mean? They use it as a stepping stone to incorporate, like Jethro Tull, the first couple bands, they're playing jazz and blues, but then they're incorporating some of that because they're classically trained.
Yeah.
Even
Led
Led Zeppelin,
right?
Well,
Yeah.
you know,
was
Yeah,
Zappa classically trained as well? I mean, the guy
he
wrote
taught
opera.
himself.
Yeah, but he
It was
wrote
probably
opera.
all-
But his-
He
but
wrote,
his-
he wrote
But his
Classic
influences he was into like 50s rock, and then avant-garde composers like Edgar Varese and guys like that who were wrote different. It wasn't real melodic, it was challenging, you know what I mean? And that's where he came from. And he loved the way he does Reuben and the Jets. That's his homage to 50s kind of rock and doo-wop.
I think where the British started, I think one of the early British heavy metal groups had to have been Dave Clark 5.
It was all in their heels.
It was all percussion.
I love it. I used to have one of their records. I remember they'd be on TV. I'm a band. They'd stop every song. They had the Cuban heels.
Yeah. Beetle Blues. They were called Beetle Blues.
Yeah.
Cuban heels.
It's really funny to hear a guy like you that like really into kind of and as I remember, BB Spin was a kind of a hard metal type of band,
We
bluesy
were a
band.
rock band.
Yeah,
but we
rock-
could play with the
And-
fury
but
and
to hear like
power of a punk.
to hear that your influences, the stuff that you like to hear is Fleetwood Mac and Dave Clark and all
You know
that.
who
I
his
grew up-
thing is? Or Lowell George.
Lowell
That's
George,
all you
Little
talked
Feat.
about.
Yeah.
But I'm a kid who grew up. I was a kid who had. I'm born in '53. As television got better, it was a library of music.
Don Kirshner's rock concerts.
No,
and then-
before then, I
Yeah.
mean, you had variety shows. And then you would have even public television, or even on regular TV, if they'd have live plays, they'd have music. You'd see Ed Sullivan, he was a schmuck.
Ed Sullivan.
But you would see an opera singer. You'd see a crooner. You'd see the American. You'd see rock. You'd see jazz. You'd see Django Reinhardt. You'd see, you know what I mean? You saw everything on these shows. This is before rock, including you'd see the folk scene. So you saw Odetta and Bucka White and Kingston Trio, and then you started seeing rock showing up.
Well,
And between that and movies,
if you were eclectic enough, you watched the country shows.
Yeah.
Saturday morning, they'd have the barn shows. Where they
At
had
one
the-
point, Channel 7 was during the week after dinner. They had the Barnyard. They
Yeah.
showed live, right? There was WLS, the radio. Chicago was a big country town.
It's the first time I was amazed to watch somebody finger pick a banjo.
That's
Long
how
before
You gotta quit doing a guitar or a banjo riff now.
The radio was the first.
Radio.
You would hear a rock and roll song on the radio, and then you'd hear Montebanni doing the theme from
That's what
Exodus.
AM radio was great
Right.
about. I loved. You'd hear that, yeah, and then
And you'd hear the Rolling Stones.
yeah,
And
you hear movie thing, but then radio too. You could go find jazz, not just on where the Loop is. That was a jazz station.
Then you had WFMT for the classical.
Yeah, and then on the AM side, you had 2 AM stations, but you still had the
WGLD.
CFL was the
WGLD
voice
on
of
the
labor,
FM.
right?
yeah
You had VON for country.
I
I
always
mean,
find
soul
for
music.
soul music. Yeah,
I always find it funny that a lot of times you see these retros top 40 lists, from top 40s, the top 40 hits from like 1973, and some of them are such schmaltzy type of music
Oh, man.
that was like
Go
that's
back.
what everybody was listening to.
Wait, go further back to
I
like
mean, I'm sure we can.
66, 65, where it's like Paul Marriott doing doo, 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 and the Stones are on there.
Well, you wonder why we were so conflicted. We had two artists around the same period of time. One was Todd Rundgren singing about it's okay for you to, I want you to be free, you gotta be free, And then you had Rupert Holmes singing about, singing about me. It's got to be me. It's him or me. Okay, you're not got to be free. So one guy's singing to his
Did it
love.
my way.
You got to come my way, and you got to get rid of everybody else. And then you got the other guy singing, oh, I want you to play around, because
Well,
you
you
got to
for-
be free.
You forgot the other part of the triad. John Denver with Country Road. We could just
Oh, yeah.
escape to the country.
And now that song is so popular. Country Road. I mean, it's
It
like and
never
then in the Neil Diamond song that everybody likes to sing now. It's
Sweet Caroline.
yeah.
That's,
Yeah.
Oh my God.
He had a good song though, Cherry Cherry. There was a rock
Cherry
and roll
Cherry
song.
was a
that
good
was
song.
a good
He
rock
had
and
a
roll
few
song.
rock songs.
He's not a good person though.
You know who started as
Yeah,
a
it wasn't
doo-wop
fun to
singer?
work with.
No, he was one of the
Dio.
worst ones to work with.
Ronnie Dio.
Yeah, I believe it.
Yeah, I mean, that guy loved rock and roll in all its forms.
Hey, man.
So, what do you think? We only
Well,
got a few minutes left here to the show. So,
Metal?
yeah. So what do you think about the latest moves? Okay, I mean, does an Aaron Judge have the right
Uh-oh.
to stop policy?
Well, I mean, the question is what's the authority of the president in executive orders?
Yes.
Is your question.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, executive orders have been around since Washington. I think there's only
Yeah.
one president that didn't issue an executive order, and he got shot 1 month into his presidency. That was McKinley, as I was reading up on some stuff. But, you know, it's an interesting dynamic. It's the executive branch, and the executive is in charge with making sure that his executive branch runs efficiently.
Foreign policy being one of the purviews.
And foreign policy and security.
Right.
Okay, I mean, the courts have given great deference to the president in terms of executive orders as it relates to national security.
So what happens when a federal judge orders the president to cease and desist?
Well, you just got to cease and desist. It's a federal law. I mean, then you don't like it, you take it up. I mean, I have some disagreement with Trump on, just because he doesn't like a decision, he wants to impeach
Ignore
somebody.
it.
But you do have, and this kind of started in the Obama era, because at one point to approve a federal judge, you needed 60 votes.
Yeah.
So you had to come up with candidates that were going to be on the federal bench
Right.
or the Supreme Court that people could look at and go, okay, the guy can call balls and strikes. I
You
mean,
can
as
cross
a
over.
lawyer, that's what you want. You want a judge that's going to call balls and strikes. You don't you let you do your case, look at it, and not walking in knowing that he's going to take a side one way or the other. Obama changed the rules. He said we only need 51. We only need 51 votes to approve whatever I wanted to approve. They changed the vote. So now what they were doing is they were hiring highly political judges. And now those political judges are starting to make decisions. A lot of people think not based on Constitution or precedent or separation clauses or things of that nature, but they're making them based on politics.
Yeah, but isn't that what the appellate court system and the
Sure it
ultimately
is.
Supreme Court
Yeah.
is all about?
No, I agree with you. That's why I said, but you have a lot of judges that are openly just saying they don't like Trump. They won't do anything that Trump, they won't support anything that he does, whether they believe it's constitutionally
But
right
you
or
had the
not.
same thing with under Biden with Republican judges who they weren't going to do anything. They
The
were.
COVID stuff.
Well,
No,
but you know what?
he doesn't-
there were Texas
see, now we're
judges that were
talking
not- yeah.
whose fault it is.
No,
I
I'm
just-
not saying no.
No,
This is
I
about
just
fault.
want
I
to
mean,
know what's going to happen.
Well, then there's Reagan appointed. Did Reagan get? He had to get 60 votes
Yeah.
for all those judges.
Yeah. Prior to that, it was a 60-vote threshold to
Okay.
appoint
Oh,
a
you
federal
correct.
judge or a Supreme Court judge, and that's why you had to have guys that both sides could say, okay, I can live with this guy.
So what were you going to say, Tom?
Well, see, we're getting it like this guy's fault. I don't
No,
care about
I'm
that.
not-
We got
I don't
the
care about that.
What's
we
your
got the
question?
situation as it is, and it's like doesn't matter why the guy's a judge. It doesn't matter if he's a prejudiced judge. If a judge says that okay, you can't do this. You can't put these people on this airplane, and if the guy goes ahead and does it, what can the judge do? Can he send federal marshals to arrest?
The president?
Well, not the president.
Well, if that's the
okay,
guy
let's
who's
say-
ordered.
He can hold those representing the government in contempt for violating his order.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean the president is represented by the Department of Justice, so his lawyers are in there, arguing these cases before that judge. The question comes in is, does the judge have the authority to do that?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what he was asking.
Right.
yeah.
Does the judge have the authority to tell the president, no, you can't issue an executive order that's based on national security? Well, yeah, he can. That's the
Well,
point
he
of it
said
all.
that was unconstitutional, is what he's saying.
Well, again,
There's no limit
there is
on-
no constitutionality as it applies to illegal immigrants. Okay, it doesn't. They're afforded protections under the Immigration Act, but that doesn't mean they're afforded protections under the Constitution.
Well, let's see what okay, he says I am abolishing the Department of Education by fiat, as though he was Louis the 14th. Okay, so some judge is going to say no, you can't do that. Because
It's got to go through
there's
Congress.
a law. There's a law.
Well,
the Congress has enacted the laws.
I think this beggars another question. Executive orders. But it's just like you're
Right.
right, there's no limit. There's
No.
no limit to like what you can do with it.
So
what
there's
kind you can put, you know what I'm saying?
there's three areas that the president can issue executive orders. One is to help carry out Congress's laws, okay, either through his administration, through his agencies, okay. He can also, there's this kind of gray area where it says like, well, there's nobody really in control of this. It's not in control of Congress, and it's not control of
Executive.
it comes under the control of the executive branch because it's not under the judiciary, and Congress hasn't passed any laws limiting it or funding it or doing anything of the kind. So those are like two of the areas where he can walk in and say, yeah, the Department of Education was created by executive order at one point. There was, I think if I wasn't mistaken, Nixon did it.
Might have been.
Yeah,
Yeah, Nixon,
70.
yeah, 70, somewhere, yeah, 70, 72, where he created the Department of Education.
So
So
with the E EPA.
it might have been to the EPA too. So, these executive agencies are under the executive branch. It's his job to have his agencies that carry out the function of what Congress wants them to do. But it's his job to make sure those agencies run. He's the boss of those agencies.
Yeah,
So-
I think where everybody gets confused is then those agencies, at the budget time, present a request to the Congress
Right.
for funding. And then Congress earmarks a certain amount of money to be funded through the Department of Education that goes for things like autism spectrum, special education, stuff that isn't normal educational process that the states normally handle. And what Doge is saying is that it would be more efficient to get rid of that altogether so that you're not paying for somebody in Kansas and let the people in Kansas pay for the people in Kansas, and the people of Illinois pay for the people of Illinois, and the people of Rhode Island get screwed because it's Rhode Island. You know,
Well,
and,
it's not a
But
question.
red states that don't have high GDP,
well,
they're gonna be,
they're the ones that are going to feel it ultimately, but you know they're poorly
a lot of
educated,
states.
so it's going to take them a while. You know.
Well, the states that need the most help with education are the states in which the elites that run those states want people ill-educated,
No.
like Mississippi and Arkansas. You know,
Texas,
you know.
Louisiana.
They don't want those people well-educated.
Illinois got some of the worst scores around, so I mean, it's all over. But we are a constitutional republic,
Yeah.
so the whole idea was to put the power in
In
the
hands
hands
of
of
a
the
very
state,
few.
Yeah.
of the state. Let the state run the states the way they want to run their state. That's what the abortion issue was. It took it back, didn't ban abortion. It just gave it back to the states. And even Ruth Bader Ginsburg said, Roe versus Wade was decided on the wrong basis. She always said that. It was decided on the wrong basis, but it was okay because they got their abortion banned federally through the Supreme Court.
So how
It wasn't a statute that was passed. It wasn't a law that was passed
So
by
how
Congress.
does a conservative balance that?
Balance what?
A woman's freedom to do what she wants to do with her body and an abortion. You know,
So-
how do you balance that out?
I can only speak for myself.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, as a conservative,
yeah.
that's what it is.
I think I call abortions kind of necessary evils. Okay. I think it's anytime you are going to take a human life in whatever form it is, that's not an easy thing to say it's okay to do. Okay. But my morality isn't your morality. Okay.
No, and your science isn't mine.
And right. And if somebody has to, we have freedoms in our country. You can be free to choose to do things that are
Except
contrary. No, you can have an abortion. Okay, they wanted to pass some legislation in Virginia where it was okay to abort the baby after it was delivered.
It was, right,
Okay,
yeah.
that we're
Yeah,
actually
you hear that
proposing that.
stuff.
No, you watch the video. The actual woman actually said it who was proposing the bill. I think I think just to kind of
Yeah.
clean this up, and I don't want to get into a big abortion issue, but I think at some point you have to limit. At some point, that fetus becomes a protected.
Yeah,
it becomes
obviously.
a protected individual,
Yeah.
even under our
agree.
Constitution. So, I mean, to say that from here to here, there's got to be some balance in the middle. 14, 16,
I
20
thought it
week
was
issue.
whatever, if you took the fetus out and it could live by itself,
Well, that was the viability issue.
Yeah.
That was what Roe called viability.
Yeah.
But
What happened
viability's
to that?
changed. It's changed. Science has changed, and we found out that fetuses have heartbeats. They react. They have feeling. They react to pain.
Yeah, but if
Okay.
you put it on the table, is it going to live?
It might, depending on
Without
depending.
tubes and
No, well, listen. If you had a stroke, would you live without tubes?
no.
Okay,
but
well-
I've already had my life. It's
Well,
done.
But
okay?
but they're just starting theirs.
And I'm not in somebody
But they're just
else's
starting
house.
theirs.
You know.
Well, if you can find another way to have a baby, Manny, God bless you.
The other thing about putting it back on the states, let them make the decisions. Does the federal government still have the power to step in if it's too extreme, where you have a governance of a particular state where
So
everything is about benefiting the party and their coffers, and the people, the working people, they suffer. Their
well,
living standards, everything.
since Roe versus Wade, you will notice that Congress never passed any type of abortion law. So they've
No,
never.
but I'm not
they
talking
never
about
got-
abortion. I mean overall.
Well, that-
I'm
but
talking
yes.
about states' rights.
Well,
you know,
if a state
to decide
if-
like voting and who
if-
gets this, who gets help, who
Slavery.
if the state
Yeah, but
well, all of
there's-
it has to
yeah.
pass. All of it has
there's
to
some
pass.
crazy thing.
Federal constitutional muster, as they like to say in law school. Okay,
Right.
so if they do pass a law, if a state does pass a law, it can go up to the U.S. Supreme Court. The U.S. Supreme Court can
challenge
say
it,
this is constitutional or it isn't. The concealed carry, the right to have a handgun in
In Illinois.
Chicago.
Right.
Okay, that was one of those things that the state said, no, you can't have a handgun in Chicago. You're done. We're banning it. And the U.S. Supreme Court said, no, you can't do that. Okay, can they ban machine guns? Yeah, they can. They have. Okay, so all of it is subject to federal constitutional approval. And that's why the Supreme Court becomes very important. And that's why electing people to the Supreme Court, you need to have people that are balanced. Okay, and that's why what I said earlier about, having a fair amount of the other side say, yeah, I can live with this guy or I can live with this woman being a Supreme Court justice because they can call balls and strikes. And I'm okay with them calling balls and strikes. But now what you have happen on both sides is you have one extreme on this end and one extreme on that end.
Everything's we're in a loop of reaction.
We're polarized.
It's just boom, 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 boom.
Which
you
is
know what I mean?
which is why we do this,
Right,
because we're
yeah.
not
So
polarized.
we're always going.
And
We disagree,
we need
but we're not
you guys
polarized.
out
I
there.
know.
You're not talking to us. We want you to put your lance of comments into some kind of a chat box form, and think of us as though you're Don Quixote and we are the windmills that you're chasing. Okay, so.
Oh, another one of those schmaltzy songs in the 60s that got popular, right?
We are the windmills of conservatism, liberalism, and centrism.
So
So tilt your lance of
I like
comments
a lot
at
of
us.
that music now.
Please, next week.
Wait, I mean, I
Like
was a bit
dotage.
to that. When I was a young kid, my mother took me to every big stage play that she could. So I saw Yul Brynner and the King and I on stage, and I saw Richard. I saw Richard Burton in Camelot,
Yes.
and I saw Rex Harrison in My Fair Lady, and I mean, as a kid, I could tell you, I wore out the Camelot album. I thought it was
Camelot's great.
I was just so enthralled by the whole knights and round table and
Great
all
song.
of that stuff. It was
My
it was
Fair
tremendous.
Lady. I have a copy of the original cast live. Him and Julianne.
Yeah.
I was at the, and those songs were all over the radio. People covered.
They were
that,
on the radio,
That
right?
is a Camelot. I've got an album of that.
I'm telling you, it was like
He was on that song with Joanne, and they
Yeah.
sang
Yeah.
the song.
I have often walked down the street before,
Uh-oh.
but
So,
the
I mean,
pavement
so there
always
was-
stays below my feet before.
There was always
Yeah,
this.
there's
All at
tenors
once
always.
am I several stories high.
Knowing I'm on
We'll
the
be right back.
street where you
Have this word from Geritol.
Sarah
And the
Chandler's
one.
nature is spelled backwards.
And the
Yeah.
one.
Memories Part 2. That's
But there was this, but back in the '60s, it kind of faded out in the '70s, and I was born in '59.
shifted.
So
hippies
but,
were
but,
in.
but, but you
Shifted in
had
the
this
70s.
mix of that classical, the Henry Mancini orchestra playing
Right.
back up to some,
Yeah.
and it was just you had this blend, and then they would mix in with a rock band, and it would be like, wow.
Who was the band that
I mean-
played Green Onions over at
Booker T.
Booker T.
Okay, they were over at the park, the amusement park that they turned into a shopping center here on Lake Street.
Oh,
If you
Chicago.
want to see,
Yeah.
if you want to see,
No, not Old Chicago, the other one.
Kittyland?
No,
no,
it
Old
was
Chicago,
Adventureland.
Oh, Adventureland.
Adventureland.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to see the best version that I ever thought,
Or the house meeting.
I think of Stairway to Heaven.
Yeah.
Watch Heart, who I never
Oh, I saw that.
doing at the Kennedy Center.
Yeah, I saw
Their version of Stairway to
She had
Heaven.
Jimmy Page laughing.
Yeah, I'm crying.
Yeah.
Okay,
Right.
and they had the whole orchestra, and they had the singers coming
Oh, it was
up, and
amazing.
it was just so well done, and it was. I always thought that would kind of been for our age. It would have been a cool stage production, as you have, you have some of those old songs, the arena rock songs that we have, and the Emerson Lake and Palmers and the Yeses. Put it with a dance troupe, put an orchestra in the pit, and play, do 10 or 12 song show of all that stuff that orchestration and
yeah,
rock
we're
band-
I
talking
want to
about-
include some of Zappa's orchestration stuff.
Absolutely.
And you know what? There is somebody right before he died or after he died, in Germany or somewhere, took one of his pieces and did a modern dance thing. to it.
Yeah. Hey, Arnie Granted, if you're listening, I know you're doing stage shows. That's an idea you can take from me. All right. But yeah, I mean, I always thought that would have been cool because guys our age, we appreciate that old orchestration, that old
Right.
sound. We like the new sound, and now there's nothing in between for us anymore. I don't know any new music. I don't.
I don't know.
If it's out there, you got to dig
I
for
know
it.
Taylor Swift songs.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You got to dig for it. Now, I'll say one thing. I live in Berwyn. I stumbled upon this radio station one day, and I'm like, wow, the Allman Brothers. One Way Out.
Mm-hmm.
And they play something that I do recognize modern, right? And then they played War Pigs. And this is a Saturday morning, and then this voice comes out, and it's really young. So I'm like, what college is this? It's LaGrange Township High School.
I'm telling you,
And they
young
were
kids,
playing the mix of music and the newer stuff that they were playing. It wasn't all punk derivative or angry young dudes or one guy
synthetic.
or some kind of dance thing or the rap influence. There was a lot of stuff that if you shut your eyes, you heard the 60s and the 70s influence as far as the guitars and the sound, the production. But there was still some of the newer rock. I was like, yeah, because I never turned away from it. And just,
Right.
here,
my son listens.
Like,
My kids listen to my Spotify playlist. Okay, they've incorporated into their own, and they'll be getting ready
They're
to
college
do something.
kids, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's like they're becoming more and more aware of a lot of that older music that
Gen
we grew
Z.
up on. Yeah. Because they don't hear that, they're not seeing that, and like you said, you got to dig to find it. I'm a Spotify fan, okay? Because Spotify, their analytics. I tried Pandora. I always got back to Fleetwood Mac, and I know you like them, but I couldn't stand.
no,
them.
I don't like the late. I like the early Fleetwood
Yeah.
Mac. The band in the 70s. There's a couple really good songs, but I like the Fleetwood Mac when they're experimenting after when they're a great blues band. They do them play on. He leaves, and then
My point is most of
There's some
the
cool
new music that I get, it comes from my Spotify because I'll have it on. I'll have a station on that I'm hitting my playlist, and then because of the analytics, they start throwing songs into my playlist, and I'm just sitting there going, "Oh wow, that's a cool song," and I'll just put it into. I'll save it to one of my favorite files, and that's how I get most of my new music. I don't get it from listening to the radio.
And that's what I want to segue into. We're kind of looking for new artists. We want to explore what's out there right now. So if you could just send a link to your music, if you're or music people that have good music, that are willing to be exposed on this program, then just send it. Where are we gonna send it to?
rhythmroastcafe@gmail.com.
There you go. rhythmroastcafe@gmail.com. Send your link. We'll listen to your band. We might even play it live over here on our next event, and then we'll critique it. So you're gonna get
that's
critiqued
cool.
by lawyers and boomers. You know, so if you're brave enough, send it in. Next week, we're going to do a little bit of history. We're going to do a tribute to Crazy Steve, the guy who started rock and roll crews throughout the Chicagoland area. And he started it all at Circle Campus back in 1970. So we're going to do a little tribute to him because he died New Year's Eve and we didn't get a chance to put anything together. Now we thought about it, and that's what we're going to do next week. So if you're out there and you knew any stories and anecdotes about good old Crazy Steve Zegger, make sure you tune in and you chat with us next week. And how do you chat? You have to have a keyboard. So if you're watching on TV, go to your
You need a
phone.
keyboard?
Well, if you got a keyboard on your phone too, you just gotta tune in to Rhythm Roast Cafe on YouTube, and you guys will have a chat option that you can chat live with the panel. I am Brendan. I'm here, the producer, and I will read off your chats to the panel as they come in.
Cool.
And there you go. So, from all of us to all of you, good night, Mrs. Calabash, wherever you are.
Thanks, Johnny Moe, for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you, Johnny.
Fun.
Cool.